Look, if on yourself you could bet your check, it feel good cause in retrospect they wasn't betting on you, and it was plots they was setting on you. Applied pressure, they was sweating on you, and you refused to fold. Let's take it back when I was 10 years old, when the youngin' was so mischievous. They never thought I would flourish, but yeah, I did this shit. Now putting on for my section, me and my syndicates. Remember running the streets, me and my nigga Shaq, making bets on which female that we was finna crack. Them was the old days, but I had to grow out them old ways and change the focus, cause back then my future was looking hopeless. Rose above my condition, was on a mission, opened my eyes and saw the vision. We mapped it out and we never switched. I'm talking more than money now when I say we rich.
And this time when we come around, soaring high, won't touch the ground. We're Israelites and we say it proud, and it's gonna be this forever. And this time when we come around, soaring high, won't touch the ground. We're Israelites and we say it proud, and it's gonna be this forever.
Look, ignorance is the coldest bliss. We grew up cursed, we ain't throw a fit. We made a way, nigga. If obstacles is in your way, nigga, you step back, then you reassess. But you don't never doubt. And anybody hating, shut their mouth. You come far, young king, don't forget your route. You just endure the drought. I guarantee it, you gon' make it out. G.O.D. angels looking down. Yeah, summer nights on rose crayons, I reminisce to all them lessons that I never forget. Who would've thought that we would get the truth? Called chemo on the phone when I heard the news. From that Pasadena house to some righteous dudes, the transition code. This the greatest story barely told. To my fears, I just pick and roll. Put that on my soul. Ask my team what it's hitting for. Yeah.
And this time when we come around, soaring high, won't touch the ground. We're Israelites and we say it proud, and it's gonna be this forever.
And this time when we come around, we're soaring high, won't touch the ground. We're Israelites and we say it proud, and it's gonna be this forever.
And this time when we come around, soaring high, won't touch the ground. We're Israelites and we say it proud, and it's gonna be this forever. And this time when we come around, soaring high, won't touch the ground. We're Israelites and we say it proud, and it's gonna be this forever.
Yeah.
Hey, that probably take her.
We just enduring.
Feel it.
We brothers.
For you. Fact. Big script rocker. Yeah. Yeah. Big tour where you get the wisdom and the knowledge. 144 the top number, 6 dollars. This that gotta live forever, gotta have that. This that ain't about the Lord and they can have that. This that only do the script, so what they mad at? Catch me walking through the fire like I'm Shadrach. As long as that Ruah be with me on his last lap, I know it's coming to a close like some hazmat. They thought they had them streets of gold, we took our ass back. I got insured on these ducks like I'm Aflac. I just endured on these smucks, went through all that. Hey, y'all esteem to Yahuwah for them laws, man. See 13 ounces in my system, drunk a tall can. I keep on boasting in Yahuwah so we all can. On the same righteous mission, screaming never switch. Even though they really did, I kept it all. Yeah, you say you got the word, what you doing with it? Are you sitting on the talent, are you babysitting? At first you hear the word, then you gotta live the word, live it. When you're talking about the truth, do you really live, you live it? When you look into the words, do you really feel it? At first you hear the word, then you gotta live them words,
You gotta live them words. Don't tell me that you love me, gotta show me it's a verb. Indeed, I testify we had to get it off the curb. And the fact they overlooked us only proves that they absurd. Toasting with my ox, we raising up that Henny. We teach the 1/3, less is more, so it's plenty. A lot of lessons learned, a lot of bridges burned. I thought I had some friends they turn out to be against me. We waiting on our king, but you gotta watch for Judas. A lot of meditation and prayer is how we do this. I'm cleansing out my temple of filth just like a Buddhist. And when it come to loving my people, man, I'm the truest. Just looking back on my life, these scriptures took my pain away. I came to the light and watched the darkness fade away. Applying myself, I double my wealth. We gon' praise the Most High while His Son deliver the help. Yash.
Yeah, you say you got the word, what you doing with it? Are you sitting on the talent, are you babysitting? At first you hear the word, then you gotta live the word, you gotta live it. When you're talking about the truth, do you really live it? When you look into the words, do you really feel it? At first you hear the word, then you gotta live the word, you gotta live the words.
Daoud. Yes. Stay righteous, Israel. Side. Get it done, we the best guys. Tell me where your dollars at. When shooting dice, you avoid the crap. Tequila shots when we kicking back. Henny when we turn it up. I remember when I caught the bus. Now it's clean when I'm pulling up. Cause when all else fades away, we'll reminisce on what we did today. That's why we yelling, don't stop, don't stop. We do it in the name of Yahweh Shai. Come on, yo. Cause when all else fades away, there's nothing left for us to say. Give praise to the Most High, the Most High. We do it in the name of Yahweh Shai.
We work hard like every day, so today's gonna be our vacay. You sip liquor or maybe a brew. It feels good to be in this truth, so don't kill my vibe. No, so don't kill my vibe. No.
Yeah. The OGs at the tables playing.
But I was going to try to squeeze in another part that was going to be more so lengthy, but I decided that it needs its own separate platform to give it good justice. So, but I'll touch on it a little bit, all right? So let's go ahead and get started. First thing I'm going to do, let's go to the PowerPoint. All right, let's go to the PowerPoint. And I'm going to get some articles from you. So one thing I am subscribed to, and, you know, I recommended Apple News Plus. So with it, looking at a lot of different articles of things going on, and I'm gonna just kind of go over some of those things with you so you get some of those updates. So one of the things we know, COVID's been going on, all right? And so one of the biggest things that we have is the safer at home restrictions. You know, so that's one of the biggest things we've been having. Like, for example, new LA County Safer at Home restriction revealed as COVID-19 surge worsens. As coronavirus cases surge, LA officials consider new rules that would allow many businesses to remain open, but with limited customer capacity. All right, so that's what we had, you know, going on with coronavirus cases and COVID-19 deaths surging at an alarming rate. Los Angeles County officials Tuesday began to outline a new limited safer at home order aimed at slowing the virus spread while sticking with an outdoor dining ban amid a growing outcry. So you did actually have that as far as November 25th, 2020. Let me see, I'll go ahead and see if I can turn that down. All right, so now, one of the things that we did have is said the March order closed all but essential businesses and left many people at home, except for trips to such places as supermarkets and medical offices. So now, so the March order closed all but essential businesses, left many people at home. So one of the biggest things is that was something that hurt, you know, a lot of people. A lot of people lost their jobs, went unemployed, because now, even though it says close all but essential businesses and left many people at home, except for trips to such places, supermarkets and medical offices, that a lot of people lost their jobs. You know, a lot of people were put in a place to where they could work from home, but a lot of us couldn't. You know, if we were non-essential, you know, considered non-essential by the government, then there was nothing we can do. We're unemployed. So many of us had to, you know, file for unemployment. You were laid off, had to file for unemployment, and they were also getting that extra pandemic assistance. That was something we were also getting. So now notice, it said non-essential business will be very much open. Gyms will be open outdoors, zoos will be open, hair salons, mini golf, and go-karts will be open with reduced capacity, Supervisor Janice Hahn said. That was one thing they had, you know, going on. But now review COVID-19 tiers every week. Ailing hospitality sector urges PM. So now this is one that says, Bears Johnson must commit to weekly reviews of the coronavirus tiers, dictating the ability of pubs, restaurants, and nightclubs to trade during the remaining months of coronavirus pandemic. Scores of hospitality chefs will warn on Thursday. So Sky News has seen an open letter to the Prime Minister from dozens of bosses, including executives of Fuller's, Mitchell's, and Butler's, and the restaurant group, which owns Wagamama, imploring him to act immediately or risk the collapse of the entire sector. So industry sources said that more than 100 companies had signed the letter, which was circulating around hospitality employers within hours of the government's announcements about arranging for the end of the England-wide lockdown during period next week. So it's not just something that happened in America. Many know that these are things that are taking place in many places throughout the world, even Europe. Canada, Europe, all the other places seem to be synonymous with a lot of the restrictions and a lot of lockdown policies and procedures that are taking place. Even they're feeling it. And the hospitality sector and theme park sectors are some of the ones being hit the hardest. Because now a lot of those places, like, you close. You can't go to Knott's Berry Farm. You can't go to, you know, a lot of places that in Disneyland trying to, you know, open up partially and trying to have it to at least let's try to get some people in. But a lot of these things aren't as successful, you know. So a lot of these things have been putting a lot of people in place to where they say, and then they keep in place, the COVID goes up, they become more strict, and then it loosens for a little bit, they loosen up, and then become strict again based on what they say the surge of COVID-19 is. So it said this state had the most contagious COVID outbreaks of them all. The United States just got a harrowing new record, 2 million new coronavirus viruses cases in 2 weeks. So it's a coronavirus virus cases. So in 2 weeks, hospitals, and it says, November 25th, 2020, hospitals are overflowing. Fatalities are rising, with Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's leading infectious disease expert, predicting a stunning amount of deaths. And one state has it worst of all. North Dakota continues to have the country's worst outbreaks when adjusting for population, a position it has maintained since early September. Almost 1 in 10 North Dakotans have tested positive for the virus since the outbreak began. The vast majority in the last 2 months, report the New York Times. Read on how to hear how bad things are there and ensure your health and the health of others don't miss these surge signs. You've already had coronavirus. So now, all this leading to, so how do we stop this surge? Here's what experts say could help. As the U.S. wades deeper into a brutal fall surge of the coronavirus, so Americans are living under a growing list of restrictions aimed at curbing the exponential rise of COVID-19. So they come in all shapes and sizes. California has resorted to a curfew. Other states, including Oregon and Washington, have moved to partial lockdowns, shuttering sectors of the economy and limiting social gatherings. Quite a few states are trying to find a middle ground that staves off the economic pain of closing businesses altogether and ordering people to stay home. So now, that's the other thing that they're trying to do. They're trying to find a middle ground between how can we try to balance you being able to do certain things without putting a place where we're just going to say everybody just officially just stay home. Everybody just go ahead and stay home. Now, I'm going through all these articles, and I'm going to talk about it and piece it all together in the direction which I'm going. I actually put them in a particular order, too. So just so you kind of get an idea of what's going on in the climate of the community. It said, but given the unrelenting advance of the virus, can these varied approaches make a difference? Or is it delaying the inevitable return to the sweeping lockdowns of the springtime? So it's really hard to slow it down once it gets going like this, says Don Milton, professor at the University of Maryland School of Public Health. That's when these awful draconian measures come into play. So draconian measures meaning everything that seems so brutal, taking away our liberties, everything's so strict, we can't do this, can't go there, you know, they're saying we can't, it just seems so strict. So that's what they mean. So now moving on. So now, and this is everything, so coronavirus surge and no stimulus will result in empty storefronts nationwide. So this is another point that I'm gonna touch on. The latest surge in coronavirus cases, coupled with the government's failure to pass another stimulus package, is exacerbating the stress and anxiety felt by hundreds of thousands of retailers nationwide. So notice that, take note. I fear if we continue to have the coronavirus cases, so we're having right now, and that we experience some type of additional lockdown, we have a lot of empty storefronts across our country. Tom McGee, an International Council of Shopping Centers CEO, told Yahoo Finance Live, adding that the situation is about to go from bad to worse. I think it's critical for the government to act. Retailers of all sizes are looking to President-elect Joe Biden's administration for financial help after the $2.2 trillion coronavirus aid relief and economic security CARES Act passed by the Trump administration, which included $659 billion for small businesses, failed to provide enough relief. Biden has pledged to improve and revamp the Paycheck Protection Program, PPP, as part of a larger relief package to better assist retailers as they cope with declining sales. It says, we're at the epicenter of the crisis, said McGee. While the CARES Act was good for staff, the government needs to do a whole lot more. I wish they would have done it yesterday and certainly would like them to act now. There's so much pressure, particularly on small businesses, which are 70% of the tenants in shopping centers around the country. So now, and that's the other thing too. So now notice, and I'm going to kind of take a brief pause here. So notice, we've seen the influx happening with COVID. COVID influx caused a situation where in order to contain the spread of the virus, we decided that it would be best to go ahead, and we being the government decided it would be best to go ahead and limit our ability to have certain businesses operational that they believe can be detrimental to our health and the spread of coronavirus, or COVID, so which all these articles have it as coronavirus and COVID. So now, even though many of you guys remember the stimulus package that they gave for small businesses, they were giving all those small businesses those grants, but it was called a loan, but it was really a grant and certain people even started getting arrested for falsely, putting down information. They didn't even have a business, or even others, even big business, they were taking, a lot of money. And even big wigs, they started getting caught because they weren't divvying the money. They were actually taking too much and wasn't paying their employees and going on vacation. So you had all that too. But nevertheless, you still had a situation where they tried to give those funds, but it really wasn't enough. So it wasn't enough for businesses, and they're still in a place to where without any other aid soon, a lot of us are going to not only be in a place where we're closed, but we're not going to open up again. We're struggling, You know, we need more aid in order to help us, you know, in order to continue to pay, you know, for our expenses, because we still have to eat, live, and breathe just like the rest of you. And even then, not only it went from, because even Disneyland workers, it went from us being furloughed and then to us getting laid off altogether. So you have that happening with other businesses as well, to where they can't continue to just furlough, and you're in a place to where, okay, I work at least some days. You know, I went from like full-time to where I'm working part-time now, to where now I'm not working at all. So you have more of that increasing, all right? But I'm going to continue with the articles. I'm going to get back and touch on it more, all right? So we're going somewhere with this. Let's get back to this. So it's a 2-mile line in Arizona, a 4-hour wait at Ohio. Millions seek help to avoid. Can we go back to the slide? It says, and if not, I'll go ahead and read it. So it says, a 2-mile line in Arizona, a 4-hour wait in Ohio. Millions seek help to avoid going hungry on Thanksgiving. So it says, Cincinnati, a little more than a week before Thanksgiving, a line from outside the Free Store Food Bank. Before the pantry opened, the temperature was 42 degrees. Are you here for food? Customers were asked when they walked in. The Thanksgiving, caring people around the country help those in need. So the answer was consistent, yes. At the beginning of the pandemic, the food bank provided for 100 to 125 people a day. Recently, it served 374 on a single day. So now, situation as time goes on, people aren't getting better or healing, it's getting worse. So it said before, you were looking at 100 to 125 people a day. It says recently, 374 on a single day. So now it says, for some in line, the experience was a new embarrassment they didn't want to discuss. For others, it was a monthly trip, part of their survival. Marquette Brandt was allowed 35 pounds of groceries, but she took less. She works at Sam's Club, but in March, her hours were cut. In May, she came to the food bank for the first time. Waiting in line, Brandt stood under a sign with bold white letters that said hope. For her, hope is the tuna and noodles she had for dinner the night before, made with groceries she received from the food bank. So now you have it to where more people who didn't need food banks prior, didn't rely on food banks, even they feel embarrassed even going to them, because I never saw myself in this type of predicament. I didn't see myself having to be so inconvenienced, especially when many people felt assured in whatever it is that they had going on within their lives, or the surety that they had in the jobs or the market that they were particularly in, that I wouldn't have expected something like this to happen. Now I'm in a deep hole, and I don't even see the light to get out right now. It's like everybody, a lot of people are like, it's like they got you like a gerbil with trying to run with a carrot on a stick, so to speak. So now, and that's what the scripture deal with, and it lets us know as far as trust not in oppression. You know, because at the end of the day, and I'll get to it, you know, momentarily. Get Psalm 62 and 10. And this is why the scriptures say this. Psalm 62 and 10.
Book of Psalms, chapter 62, verse 10.
Go ahead and read.
Trust not in oppression, become not vain in robbery. If riches increase, set not your heart upon them.
So it says, trust not in oppression and become not vain in robbery. If riches increase, set not your heart upon them. So the biggest thing is, we're still in a place of captivity. And this, what we forget is America is a corporation. It runs off of businesses. We're not in a place to where we have like our own land, you know, our own crops, vegetation, where we can be self-sufficient. So if we don't have our jobs to provide those finances, what do we do? You know, what does that look like? We don't really have anything. And I'm going to get to that more so too in a little bit. So I'm just getting a lot of these in the article, and I'm going to talk and converse about it more. So it says, even if your riches increase, because we get those promotions, many people just got jobs and just had a lot of good things happening for them, you know, and many very affluent. But during these times, it's like, shoot, I lost it. You know, I'm in a situation where especially a lot of people, you know, who are better well offset, even middle class, it was like, well, shoot, I'm in a very bad predicament and really embarrassed. Don't like to talk about it because it's like, man, I was doing a lot better for myself, you know, and now it's like I'm a poor man or woman, you know, so or household. So, and I'll cover more of that momentarily. Let's go back to the slide. All right. So I want to cover more of these things. And then, so it says, okay, we covered that. I'm reading just a little bit more. I'm gonna carry on. So it's a story playing out across the nation this Thanksgiving. More Americans are in need of help to avoid going hungry amid the economic fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic. So just keep all these little points, you know, in mind. So this is a story playing across the nation for this Thanksgiving. More Americans are in need of help to avoid going hungry amid the economic fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic. So a Feeding America analysis estimates that 15 million more people will live in food insecure homes in the USA this year compared with pre-pandemic estimates. That's not a small number. That's a large number. That is a very large number. So, because I want you guys to think also too, because, you know, preparation, then just thinking where all these things are going, okay? I'm gonna connect the dots, and then I'm gonna have, like I said, a separate lesson to go in depth with some other things, because I know I'm not gonna squeeze it all in this one class, and I wanna make sure I do everything a good justice. So just take note of the articles, like I said, so you can get a lot of these articles. I'm going through it a little too fast, so I'm subscribed to Apple News Plus. So, and I just want my computer just, you know, I saved, you know, all my stories, and I just kind of put them in a little order, go through for you guys this particular way. All right. So now, let's go back, and bam, 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 and get back where I was. Okay, so this one, I'm gonna read a little more of this one. So food banks have consistently seen a 60% increase in demand compared to this time last year. That's a lot, a 60% increase? Normally, a big increase is still something like you see, okay, 8, 10, 14%. That's still a lot. But a 60%, that is crazy. A 60% increase. That is still, think about if you're in an amusement park. You know, amusement park has a lot of people. Imagine a little more than half of the people in that amusement park are now in a place to where they have to go to these food banks, all right, because they don't have. I'm going to get more of that, too. So now, just take note. The U.S. Census report in the week before Thanksgiving that about 12% of adults in American households with children received free groceries or a free meal the previous week, according to a survey conducted from October 28th to November 9th. About 1 of every 4 households in Rhode Island struggles over the summer to put food on the table, according to a report released Monday. So even that's crazy. So now, despite federal assistance, 25% of households in the state were worried about having adequate food, up from 9.1% last year. So it said, look, even though people are getting federal assistance, they're still in a place to where they're worried. Because a lot of times the federal assistance isn't enough. It hasn't been enough. So even the so-called stimulus check, that was laughable. That only saved most people a month, if that. It was a joke. So now, and it says, okay, so from 9.1% last year and the highest level of food insecurity in 20 years. Think about that, the highest level of food insecurity in 20 years. That's a long time. You think about it, could you look at that like, shoot, it's been other hard times. It was like, shoot, people been doing good for a while. So now it says, according to Rhode Island Community Food Bank's annual status report on hunger, the survey found food insecurity caused by the pandemic has hit families of color particularly hard. So Israelites getting hit the hardest. Of course, why? Because many of us, I'm gonna get there. I want to jump ahead of myself. All right, so across the years, fewer students are being identified as homeless. Educators say that's actually a bad sign. Across the country, school staff are reporting a shocking drop in the number of students who are identified as homeless and are therefore entitled to critical support from their school. Advocates worry that that means many children are going without access to things like food, healthcare referrals, and laundry services. They also worry that could indicate many students aren't enrolled in school at all right now. So because especially too, many are being homeschooled, well actually everybody homeschooling, excuse me, everybody homeschooling. It's just whether or not you're doing it through your public school or through another curriculum elsewhere. But nevertheless, it's still in a place to where, as I said, they also worry that could indicate many students aren't enrolled in school at all right now. So what's happening with education? What does that mean? And then also, too, what are a lot of these kids doing to occupy their time? So in Hillsborough County, Florida, one of the county's largest school districts, the number of students identified as homeless is down by a third, or 754 students. In Wake County, North Carolina, there are 335 fewer homeless students, a 13% decrease. And in Omaha, Nebraska, there are 296 fewer homeless students, a decrease of 46%. The vast majority of school-based liaisons who work with these students say the declines are not the result of shrinking need in their communities, though eviction moratoriums have helped some families. Instead, they reflect the reality that staff periodically checked on whether students are eligible for services. And school staff have struggled to reach families and students during a pandemic that has shuttered school buildings and reduced in-person contact between students and school staff. So the biggest finding, which we're dealing with, isn't a situation where these kids are now in safer situations, but pretty much lack of communication. We're not able to reach them. Many of them aren't in school. They're not reporting in. Therefore, the numbers are going down. They said, now, those are the findings of a new report published last week by Schoolhouse Connection, a national nonprofit that advocates on behalf of homeless youth and poverty solutions. An initiative. All right, make sure I'm reading it good. So, initiative of the University of Michigan. We're very concerned that in the present moment, when children are not identified as experiencing homelessness, they may not be connected to education or any kind of support. So notice they might be connected to education. So, said Barbara Duffel, the executive director of Schoolhouse Connection. That's the worry in the short term, but there are possible long-term consequences too. The concern is that these losses pile up, Duffel said. Even though we know children are amazingly resilient, every day that they go without education, the further they fall behind, the more likely they are to disengage, to drop out, and to continue to experience homelessness as adults. Because that's really the key thing. These kids, in layman's terms, aren't in school. They aren't being educated. Now this situation where they're lost in the system. They're not being accounted for. So now that's enough from there. Go ahead. May we pass my sister a mic? And she works in the school system too. So I got to hear from her. I know. See, I just said my sister. I didn't even say your name. I just pass her that mic. See, I don't want to embarrass her. Yeah, pass her yours. Yep. Thank you.
Just wanted clarification. So is the article saying that the students are homeless, and because of them being homeless, they're like having lack of the resources? Is that what you're saying?
It's dealing with both. Dealing with the first dynamic. They're generally saying on one end, okay, well, the reports seem to be good. Less kids are homeless. We're having a lower amount of kids that are homeless, but it's misleading because the reality is that they're saying, well, there are more kids that are suffering homelessness that aren't accounted for because they aren't even being accounted for as far as being in school because they're not in school and no one's keeping track of them. So it's really a bad thing because we have many kids who aren't getting the true help that they need because they're not being accounted for. Communication is lost either from parent-teacher aspect or just now it's like these kids aren't even checking in. You know, we're not. It's like they're in school, but they're not in school. So that's really a big problem because the situation is, if this continues like this, especially long term, and even if this pandemic type situation continues, it's going to lead to a situation these kids aren't going to get the help that they need. And the worry is not only short term, like now they're in trouble, suffering, not getting the proper health care, you know, so on and so forth, but it can have damaging effects to where they can be in a place of consistent homelessness as adults or in the time being because I didn't get certain help in mental illness. I'm going to get to that momentarily, but other issues start to come on to where they're afraid they may have similar issues as an adult, that now they don't have the proper education tools or resources that they should have gotten when they were younger to where now there's more problems when they get older. So that's another thing that they're looking at too. That makes sense? Go ahead. May you pass it? Oh, you got a mic? Okay, cool.
I know one of the issues along with that we're seeing as well is because the parents are not tech savvy.
Yeah.
Is that's like the major problem because
Right.
the parents don't know how to. So it's because I don't know how to. Instead of me calling to ask, kid will just be absent. So with them being absent, yeah, they're not in school. And then also with the homelessness, we found out just during a recent meeting that they wasn't even being marked correctly. So even if a kid is,
Absent?
what's the word I'm looking for?
Truant?
No, even if a kid is, like, say you in foster care, that kid is still considered homeless, even if they're living in a stable home. They're still considered homeless. Even if a kid gets in trouble and has a probation officer, they're still considered homeless.
Mm-hmm.
So there's multiple entities that can make a kid homeless, and they may not necessarily be homeless. So
Right.
they're being counted for something, and it may not necessarily be true.
And then even on top of that, homelessness doesn't have, like, when most people think homeless, they think, okay, I'm literally in a place to where I'm just living on the street. When
Right.
Nah, there's many definitions to homelessness.
Right.
That's one aspect of the definition, but homeless can be the same thing the sister, was saying, that in some cases it can be classified like that. Other ways it can be classified as far as people who may go from home to home. That's homeless. They lack that stability. Or a place to where they're living out of their car. That's another place of homelessness. Living in a shelter. That's another place of homelessness. So these are all things that classify in homelessness, and I'll touch on more of those things in the future.
Yeah,
You can
anytime
continue.
DCFS is involved with a student, they're considered homeless off top. So anytime they check into school and DCFS, there's a case with that student. It doesn't matter if they're with their parent or not, they're still considered homeless because there's a DCFS case open.
Right. Absolutely. The water, sis. So now, and the key thing I said, we're very concerned in the present moment when children are not identified as experiencing homelessness, they may not be connected to education or any kind of support. So that's the key thing, them connected to education. So now, and let me go ahead and I'm going to get, now, this is the thing I want to get. It may be a little too, yeah. All right, I'm going to get some other things. So now it says 6.4 million COVID-19 vaccine doses expected to be shipped to states by mid-December. States will begin receiving the first doses of COVID-19 vaccines in mid-December, but will make their own determinations on who will be the first in line for a shot. So an estimated 6.4 million doses of, Pfizer's vaccine will be distributed to states and territories by mid-December, assuming it receives Food and Drug Administration, FDA, authorization by that point. Operation Warp Speed, officials told reporters Tuesday. State officials will notify Friday how many doses they should expect to receive in initial distribution. And they'll make their own decisions about who will be prioritized for the first doses. So now, let me get this. So as COVID-19 vaccine nears, employers consider making it mandatory. Just a few months in the coronavirus pandemic, Holly Smith had already made up her mind. She was not going to reopen her restaurant to diners until there was a vaccine. She just didn't think it was safe when she shared the decision with her staff. They asked, would the vaccine be mandatory? Yes, she said, it would be. So now, I'm not going to open until I can indeed be sure that everyone on my staff is vaccinated, says Smith, chef and owner of Cafe Janita in Kirkland, Wash. So the immediate people on the team, you've got to take care of them. If you don't take care of them, they cannot help you take care of business. So, and I'm going to get to more of this too. It says, woman shares horrifying images of legs before amputation to persuade anti-vaxxers. Woman who lost both her legs after contracting meningitis, has shared shocking images of her legs turned black in the hopes of scaring anti-vaxxers into getting the COVID-19 jab. So we're going to get more of that. So now, holiday season starts under pall of more than 100,000 new COVID-19 cases, and 20 states did not report numbers on Thanksgiving Day. So they said, look, Thanksgiving season, we got 100,000 more COVID cases. So America entered the sovereign holiday weekend following a Thanksgiving Day. So they said during Thanksgiving Day, some of y'all want to still see your families, saw more than 100,000 new COVID-19 cases and 1,200 deaths, skyrocketing numbers given that 20 states did not report data. So this is when we have 100,000 cases just from Thanksgiving alone. And then on top of that, we have 1,200 deaths due to that. So way to go. So now, and where I'm going to get with these things, let me see what all I have. Okay, put it back on me. All right, we're going to get a few other things. Okay, actually, let me get this other one. All right, so this is millions of Americans are headed into the holidays on the edge of the abyss. The Dow hit 30,000, and white-collar professionals are enjoying a V-shaped recovery. But 26 million Americans report they don't have enough to eat, and an unemployment benefits cliff looms that will slam those already struggling. So it says, look, even with unemployment benefits, people are struggling. It says now because I'll get to it. Let me see how I'm doing on time. All right, I'm doing okay. So now it says, but 26 million Americans report they don't have enough to eat. And an unemployment benefits cliff looms that will slam those already struggling. On the day before Thanksgiving, we learned initial jobless claims rose again for the second straight week to 778,000. Tens of millions have been struggling for months to pay rent or other bills. Because that's the other thing. It was, even then, because I listen to news, KNX 1070 AM radio, they said that now at this point in time, compared to the same time last year, people are 6 times more behind on their mortgages. 6 times more behind. That's a high number. 6 times. That's crazy. So now it says, like it says, tens of millions have been struggling for months, not a month. We ain't looking at some weeks, because it can still say like 8 weeks. It ain't saying weeks or a month. It said months to pay rent or other bills. The lines at American food banks are growing ahead of a holiday where we all traditionally gorge ourselves to the bounty of life in this, the richest country in the history of the world, according to the Washington Post. More people are now going hungry than at any other point of the coronavirus pandemic. So it says now it's only been getting worse. Now more than ever. So in fact, there may be more hungry now in the United States than at any point since 1998. Go ahead, me. Pass the mic to my brother back there in the back.
I know you got a lesson, and you gonna tie it all in, but I was just thinking, like, with the people losing homes or they behind, a lot of people were doing unresponsible stuff by not paying their mortgages and their rent because they were saying that these release funds were coming in. Remember, everybody was excited about that, like the second stimulus checks and these other things. And, you know, it's a system then with rates at an all-time low for people that are responsible. They're buying, you know, they're refinancing, buying other stuff, and it's a system. But then the same thing when you saying, like, it's a food shortage, but, like, in the hood, I'm in the hood every day, I see so much food being given out at high schools, middle school. It may not be what you want to eat, but a gang of spaghetti sauce. So it's kind of, it's funny how you're reading these reports, but what I'm seeing with my eyes, as far as like in my community, you know, it's some trickery stuff going on.
Mm-hmm. So now, and this is why don't we get on that note, and I'm gonna get more into that. We're just saying, get Jeremiah 6:14. Because that was the other thing they did promise. You know, they promised leniency, you know, with those who had, they were behind, you know, on bills and rent, mortgages, and they were saying, you know, hey, grace periods and don't worry about it. It's okay. Just communicate. You know, everything will be all right. Everybody was feeling good. I'm going to be all right. But get Jeremiah 6:14. Go ahead and read that.
Book of Jeremiah, chapter 6, verse 14. They have healed also the hurt of the daughter of my people slightly, saying, peace, peace, when there is no peace.
Because the reality is, they sure as quick recently started saying people going to have to start paying back all that. You know, they've been saying, look, everything you missed, you know, one report said January, y'all going to have to start paying back all the missed payments, all the bill, like, they sure as heck asking for it, you know, back. You know, so, and even then, with a lot of things and, you know, with the reports, at least in this regard, and especially, you know, a lot of it's too, they're dealing in a place to where a lot of these people now, they're going to, you know, as you mentioned, a lot of these food banks now. You know, whereas before, I didn't really have to do that. You know, before I was in a place to where I can go to the store and buy whatever it is that I need. So now it's a place where, shoot, I'm going, you know, to these food banks and spending this time in line to where out of my own pocket, I don't really have it like that, you know. So it's becoming to where before a food bank wasn't really anything called into question. Now it's something like, man, it's part of either the monthly routine or weekly routine, you know. So depending on where you're going, either monthly or weekly. So a lot of people are relying on it now in that particular place to where it's like, well, shoot, I've seen it even, you know, over here by the Big Lots. You know, they was passing out food and things of that nature too. So people are now, that's what they have to resort to. You know, I don't have the same luxury I used to be to where I can go ahead and splurge the way that I used to because, of course, you did have it to where, yeah, some people were unwise. They thought, shoot, more money was going to be coming. So I can spend this now to where it's like, well, shoot. It ain't come. It ain't came yet. So we hoping there seems to be some sort of relief. So now this says more people are now going hungry than any other point of the coronavirus pandemic. In fact, there may be more hungry now in the United States than any point since 1998 when the Census Bureau started keeping track. 26 million Americans report they don't have enough to eat, including 1 out of every 6 households with children, and the situation is only likely to deteriorate further. So the virus is already surging across the country, as the federal government has abandoned whatever meager attempts it was making to contain the spread, and the holidays are likely to exacerbate, you know, things. This fear is at the root of the economic turmoil, which I'm gonna get to. The labor market improved more quickly than expected through the summer, but progress has stalled, and long-term unemployment is growing as the lasting damage takes hold. So now let me see. Jobless aid for nearly 14 million Americans to expire the day after Christmas. They said, boy, that's Esau for you, huh? He said, I'll let you feel good for the holidays. The next day, I'm shutting you off. He said, woo, celebrate, and then, we cut them. Woo. He said, that debt is way too big. You need to cut it. Cut it. Cut it. All right. So now, Reuters, the number of Americans receiving unemployment benefits under pandemic programs set to expire the day after Christmas continued to rise in early November, according to a Labor Department report released Wednesday. That means millions of families will see income fall sharply in the middle of the holiday season. making it harder for them to afford rent, groceries, and other necessities. So now it's like people already struggling with it. We cutting benefits. It's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. And that's what they're hoping to sign a new bill. Sign a new bill. And then on top of that, it says California EDD fraud victims, lawmakers frustrated about latest unemployment scam involving prisoners. Prosecutors believe more than 140 million state benefits have been paid out to California prisoners. This comes on the heels of another big problem with unemployment insurance benefits from the California Development Department, EDD. So it says San Francisco, KPIX5, prosecutors and district attorneys from 9 counties across California believe more than 140 million in state benefits have been paid out to prisoners, even those on death row. This comes on the heels of another big problem with the unemployment insurance benefits from the California Employment Development Department, EDD. The news was incredibly disturbing and disheartening, but unfortunately, it's not a surprise. This is a department that has been failing California for many months in many different regards, said Assembly Member David Chu, D. San Francisco. So as KPIX5 has been reporting for weeks, people who lost their jobs during the pandemic and got their EDD benefits through Bank of America debit cards had their accounts drained of thousands of dollars and still haven't received credits. Last month, EDD announced the freezing of more than 350,000 accounts due to suspicious activity. Fraud victims are furious their accounts may have been frozen because of the recent scam involving prisoners. That's bad. And then on top of it, when I was also listening to, they said, well, the EDD at the same time only has 17 criminal investigative reporters. So people who actually look and try to research the scams and the fraudulent activity, they only have 17 people on the job to do it. So they're way behind because of all these things. And then it says unemployment predicted to hit 2.6 million by mid-2021. You know, so they say. So now, all right, put it on me. All right, so we good. I went through most of the things that I covered. All right. So now we can talk. Let's talk. All right, I can take my time now. I feel comfortable. All right. So I wanted you to get a good idea of everything going on in the climate community so we can have more of a conversation of what this looks like and what this means. So now we had earlier in the spring, we're looking at the springtime, we had COVID hit, so to speak, right? They started shutting everything down. A lot of people lost their jobs, they got furloughed, you know, off top. And then they started to, you know, we had a temporary aid. They gave us a little stimulus package, you know, earlier on, you know, kind of help us out, and everything felt pretty good. The problem is you have and this is where the chaos of COVID comes in, and this is where you have other things that can create opportunities, but it can also create a lot of dangers and harm at the same time. On one end, with the job losses that we have, if we don't have employment, I don't have the means to purchase the things that I need. I can't pay my rent. I can't pay my mortgage. I can't buy the groceries that I need to eat for myself and for my family. So obviously people are going to try to make reductions in the areas that they know that they can. I'm going to cut this down. I'm going to get rid of this. That's the logical thing to, you know, try to do, try to make ends meet. What you've also noticed before this whole COVID thing hit, you had a very high increase in mortgages and rent going up. It's been going up for the past 3 years like crazy. I mean, it's been going up since Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, which I'll touch on again, 2008, 2009, housing market crash. We'll get back to that momentarily. But it's been going up at a ridiculously high fashion over these past 3 years. So a lot of people have been buying home within these past 3 years at very high rates. But a lot of these same people are in jeopardy of losing their homes. Foreclosures have been at a very, very high. A lot of people are losing their homes because it's like, well, shoot. It's like I was in a panic state to buy it because everything was going up and, you know, supply and demand, you know. So I get it. I need to hold it. But now people are having a problem holding it because of COVID, because I can't work. So a lot of sectors are getting hit. A lot of people can't pay their rent. Even You even had, shoot, some people maybe know Wolfgang Puck. He was even complaining like, shoot, he has multiple restaurants, and he's saying like, shoot, I'm losing money. I'm losing. Not only is a place to where, because it's not even just the owners of whoever owns these restaurants, but it's their employees as well. I don't have the means to pay them, so I don't have the means to pay the rent to keep this open, so I gotta keep cutting. I even went to the dealership. They're saying like, man, a lot of people, they had to cut and let go. And then even a lot of them, the smaller big wigs, I would say at that, different dealership shop, they had to take pay reductions in order to help keep certain people still employed and kind of share. So they had to take more furlough days, things of that nature. So now the other side of things, to where if people are in a place to where they don't have the finances that they need in order to pay to keep their houses, things of that nature. And you do have others. Some of you guys may have heard the story to where you have more squatters. They've been trying to go ahead and get in these houses, even these vacant houses. They've been trying to sit in. Even the police was getting it because they hog-tied this Edomite girl, and got her up out of there. And they claim like, look, we can't just have squatters in these places because some of these places are unsafe. Some of these vacant houses are unsafe and not deemed, habitable or not up to code or whatever it is that they got to say. But they've been trying to get them out of there. But you do have squatters, that's been increasing. So now, when you have people who they don't have, they're going to get eventually to a breaking point. If the government doesn't provide some sort of infrastructure that they can rely on to where they can have the necessities, then there's going to be a breaking point. You have unemployment going up. We can't work. We can't eat. We're not getting the money. We can't get the basic supplies that we need. So then thievery starts eventually going up. Theft. You have something to say? Go ahead.
I know the title of the lesson is COVID and Chaos, and I was just thinking about prostitution has went up.
Yep.
Because if a lot of these women that can't feed their babies, instead of doing the logical thing that you said, cut back on stuff, that's went up.
Yep. OnlyFans.
Yep. The OnlyFans pages and all that type of stuff. And another thing with them cutting, like you said, if that's true that they're gonna cut in December, then if you can't work, people start to steal. So
that's where I'm getting it right now. Yep.
They start stealing, and then you see like with the firearms industry, that's like gold right now because people that was
most
diligent,
of them is sold out.
Right. So for the people that was diligent to be able to get things years ago and all that type of stuff, you have to be able to protect the stuff that you have. So it's crazy that you're doing this lesson, but I can see with all the stuff you're reading, it's getting down to that point.
Exactly.
You're going to have to rely on the Most High. And, a lot of people like to say, well, I'm not part of a camp, but you're going to need a camp.
Exactly.
You need a brotherhood and a sisterhood.
You see, it's all coming to a head.
Right.
And that's what that's why I put all the articles in that order to paint a picture.
Right.
I wanted someone who has some insight to see, okay, what direction is it generally heading in? That's why I said I have other lessons, but I'm going to go into other detail with those because I wanted to kind of paint the picture of this one and give an overview, give a general overview so people kind of see the climate of what's in the atmosphere right now because some of our people, they be oblivious. If you don't sit down and show them, it's like, man, I've been out of the loop. So other people who have been, more so in the loop, watching the news or been abreast of the things, then cool, all praises, But for those who haven't, you can pass this to Mike. It can go over your head or you can miss out on a lot of information and just kind of what direction things are heading in. Go ahead, sis.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on what Kahan said too. I think, like he said, just being diligent of preparing back, right? In the beginning, like people should have been preparing. But even now, like people are hiring. It's not like there's no jobs. Like you go on Target. I walked into Target in Manhattan. They had a whole table sitting out. You can fill out the application. They doing interviews on the spot. So it's not. People are choosing not to. Some people are just choosing just to rely. Like, oh, I'll just sit at home and get this check. I have people at work that's literally. I'm like, do they still work here? Like, what's going on? Like, what's happening? But they're choosing to because a spouse is probably getting unemployment. They like, man, I'm getting more from unemployment than going to work. So people are choosing to rely on that. And now that they're taking it away, and then it becomes an uproar where it's like, if you have a job, go to it. There's so many people out there hiring all over the place, but people are just choosing to be lazy, and they're choosing to just sit and not have. And so because they don't have, like you said, then it gets to a point where I'm going to start taking from other people. Stop, get off your behind and go out there and do what you need to do. Because I've been to food banks before plenty of times, just growing up as a kid. Ain't nothing wrong with getting no food from no food bank. They got some good food over there. All these, I'm just
She said it'd be good.
I'm just saying.
Nothing to
if
be
you having
refused.
Some good peanut butter. But I'm just saying there's a lot of different, what they call it, the markets where you can get the vegetables from.
Right.
It's a
Different
lot of
produce and
those
things.
popping up everywhere. You can just go and get the vegetables and stuff. Yeah,
markets
the farmers market. So, I mean, it's like you said, it's food and stuff out there. There's resources. It's people choosing not to take advantage of those resources.
Right, you do have that too, and then it is in a place to where, because even some of the other articles mention to where there are other jobs out there that are available, and you do have many of those that have just resorted to, because even it's been memes about it too, all on social media, like, man, people you getting paid more on unemployment than you are, working. So there are people who are taking advantage of that, and it is in a place to where, okay, well, cool, benefits being cut, and certain people can go back to work in those sectors. So that is another point to where, okay, it isn't like a 100% all is lost, but you do still have a great deal of jobs where people, they don't have those. Go ahead.
What Tashana said was absolutely right. People, I've talked to a couple of people where they say, man, I make more money on unemployment than actually working. But the problem is this: when they cut it off, everybody's going to try to get a job at the same time. Then it ain't going to be no job. So it'd be different if they, like people, we're stiff-necked people. We do stuff at the last minute. So they going to cut it off in December. You going to wait till the end of November and start looking instead of months ago trying to really get a job. So that's where the chaos comes in. Like you're saying, that's part of your lesson. Everybody's going to do it at the last minute. And then all those
story of Israel.
Right.
Story of Israel's last minute.
And they got to pay that money back.
So, and then that'd be the thing too, because and then you have it to where on top of that, so you are gonna have an influx of people who are gonna be rushing to try to get a job from what it is that is available, or that whatever it is that is open. But if they don't, even on top of that, loosen the restrictions to where a lot of the sectors that are closed, where people can't get the jobs, or from businesses that they spent too long getting these resources that these businesses needed to thrive, they're not going to open again. Because a lot of places have, especially a lot of mom and pop shops, a lot of places are closing down. Even other bigger businesses closing down because they've been losing this whole time. So even then, a lot of those small business loans that were meant to help, because, and that goes back to the statement I said earlier, America's a corporation. If people aren't working to get enough money to take care of their necessities, then they're not going to take care of the luxuries, and if they're not taking care of the luxuries, or they messed up taking care of luxuries, now they can't take care of other things that they need, businesses aren't making money. So I'm not making money, then I got to cut off my workers, because I can't continue, then I have to close up shop. So a lot of sectors aren't going to be able to recover back, and that's why a lot of them are in place of panic or fear, hoping the government does something, because it's like, what are we going to do? So, and I'm already way behind to where it's like, I don't need some sort of miracle, to come through. And that's what I'm waiting on, is some sort of miracle to go ahead and help us to where we can recover out of this deficit that we've been in. Otherwise, its doors going to be closed forever, So, and that's what the case is for even other people for rent and mortgages. Like, well, shoot, if we don't get something, then a situation where what do we do? Are they going to push, for the evictions? Are we just going to go ahead and squat? So a lot of those things are really, and what they're hoping and they're pushing everything is where the vaccine is the answer. The vaccine will push everything back to normal. Just get the vaccine. Another place where, shoot, it's always going to be through, with the jobs, to where it's all right, well, look, we start making it mandatory through the jobs. You got to get vaccinated. Because already a lot of places, you have to already get vaccinated in some sort of way to work there, but now they're just going to make it something where it become the norm for a lot of these other jobs. You want to go back to normal? This is the way we get there. you know, because you already have a big split between those that when tension is high, you still have those that believe just do whatever the government said that will make it better. You want it to be over sooner, just do what they tell them to do. So you kind of have a left and a right on that end too, versus those who like, man, that ain't gonna work. You know, I ain't doing that. So that's gonna cause one of those other like internal wars between those who, hey, just same way like people with coronavirus and the social distancing and the mask, it's just gonna be heightened because we want things to go back to normal, and this is what's stopping me from going back to normal. So they've already been doing trials, but they say the trials are 95% effective, you know, so that's why I brought up the article where they're already ready to start going ahead and shipping it. And the whole goal within the articles is that anti-vaxxers, you know, you need to go ahead and bite the bullet. It's needed, because that's the biggest thing right now. It's been so bad, it is needed. We need the vaccine. You know, we need to push, because look at the numbers. It's been skyrocketing. You know, how could you refuse? And notice it's something being pushed, you know, worldwide. It's something that's needed, you know, from other countries. So this, whether you look at it in a place to where, you know, I try to use wisdom, you know, the scriptures say, and deals with, you know, pandemics and diseases and pestilence, things to hit. But then you also deal with that, you know, everything Esau's going to use to his advantage as well. The reality is not every sort of, you know, pandemic or virus or sickness is of, you know, Esau, but everything Esau's doing is, you know, of the Most High. So it's at the end of the day that these are things that are going to help bring forth the prophecy as far as the dangers, you know, that are going to be happening in this world because of the instability. You know, when people don't have that stability and they've been holding out for as long as they can, they're going to result to other means of violence and crime. So if the majority, and that's always it, the majority got to be in a good situation. If the majority is not, you know, then you're going to have, you know, you're going to have problems. You're going to have crime because I can't feed my family. And the infrastructure of this country is not providing me a safe way to do so. Why did a lot of the gun sales go up? A lot of people, both Edomites and Israelites, were saying, I don't trust the government to protect me. And they see the climate of the community that things getting bad between interracial warfare and police brutality, where I need the means to defend myself if something happened. You know, so and the economy is pointing closer to where if things are really that bad, you're going to need to have something. You're going to have some sort of firearm and some sort of community as well, because what are you going to do when, if they don't provide some sort of subsidy or stimulus? What are you going to do if they say, well, look, you know, we these businesses, instead that these aren't opening back up again, we're not giving you back your jobs. You're going to have that rush to get the few jobs that are there, because a lot of these sectors, they're not open again. So because they did it for deliberately so long to where you could have had some sort of aid, to where we could have had a lifeline, but then you ended up cutting the lifeline for a lot of us. So now it's even if aid does come another few months down the line, it's what I have to still survive in between that time until that aid came. It's like it's what good does you ever get? Okay, like for example, reading another article. One of the other problems right now with the long waits is in the healthcare industry. A lot of people are dying at a higher rate now because of the long lines to get healthcare. They have doctor appointments that are so far out, or you know, or that are backed up to where they're dying before they even get the help or the pre-screening needed to even find the particular disease or ailments or tumors that they've had. There's more people you'll find if you look up the articles that are dying because they couldn't get tested or pre-screened. And then when the testing or pre-screen or the doctor appointment finally does come through, it comes through like weeks or a few months after the person already died, where the family member getting the call like, man, you know, and all you have in the healthcare industry is an apology. We apologize for not getting the whatever appointment sooner or whatever transplant sooner, because that's another thing that's backed up too. A lot of appointments. And a lot of people are dying at a higher rate because of that. So it's sad too. So it really is a place where a lot more people are going to lose their homes, you know, because they lost their jobs. And that's going to be something that's really going to, you know, hurt a lot of people to where, you're going to be stuck between certain people that are going to choose to squat, you know, if they can, if the infrastructure isn't that bad, and a lot of people are just going to straight out just lose their homes. It really all depends on how far left the economy really goes to see how much chaos is really going to happen. But everything on the table is, you know, a rise in crime, you know, so I would encourage, you know, anyone that isn't in a place of being prepared, make sure that you do stock up on food, stock up on water, stock up on weapons, ammunition, you know, shoot, yeah, if you're not with a camp, you should get with one, because when things get tough, who do you have to rely on? Who do you have to have your back? Because the scripture deal with, they're going to be going in and out of homes. You know, they're going to be looting. You know, people are going to be fighting each other, you know, even friends as enemies, you know. So, and those things are happening, but it's only going to get worse. More of these conditions are only going to cause it to be more frequent in nature, to where you're going to have a high level of crime. And then, even as people are saying, the government is not going to be able to protect you, because if it's widespread, they're like, even like with the military is only 1% of the nation. Only 1% of the nation is really in the military. It's not like a situation where we have like, all right, 30%, 40%, 50% of the country is in the military, the police force. That's not the case. They're a very small number. And many of them are just going to go back to their families if it's really that bad, because I'm be concerned about my own family's welfare. You know, a lot of people is like, to hell what it is that they're doing or saying. It's no different if things got real bad, it was really a race war. Many of them, like, shoot, they not finna kill their own and things that they leaving. So a lot of them, you know, have said that, things of that nature, you know, and I've asked personally, being from a military background, like, they're not finna do all of that. So you still have it to where, man, things are gonna be real bad, and I just kind of want to give that. And I am gonna give next time some books, medical apartheid, so, which is the dark history of medical experimentation on Black Americans from colonial times to the present. You also have The Vaccine Guide by Dr. Randall Newton-Sider, and then another book, When Doctors Kill Who and Why. And I'm gonna go over some articles, because the vaccine and the whole industry, and I'll kind of give you a little snippet, but the whole goal is to push the vaccine to where you feel that's the answer, and the vaccine just gonna make things worse, you know, to be honest with you. The vaccines have been pushed deliberately, but it's been pushed and set up, because I have to bring those histories together, you know, with even going back to where who learned from who. Many know the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. You know, a lot of them get involved within the medical industry and healthcare industry, you know, with the vaccines, you know. So, but the whole goal is to be able to kill off as many people as possible. So, because the study that they have and the knowledge they have deals with teachings that world's only getting bigger in terms of population growth, and we don't have the tools and resources to sustain those continuing rise in numbers. Therefore, we need to find ways to cull or kill off more of the population, so that we can be in a place to maintain a certain level of resources to continue mankind. So instead, what we're doing is for the betterment. And so your research and, you know, what these books, you know, talk about is where Bill and Melinda Gates, where they get it from, you know, comes down to, you know, Margaret Sanger. And Margaret Sanger got it from Sir Francis Galton. Sir Francis got it from Thomas Malthus, you know, so which it all, the agenda has always been the same. You know, Sir Francis Galton is the cousin of Charles Darwin. You know, so, but I'm gonna get into more of these things and the experiments, and just dealing with how the whole convergence is to be able to lie to the people and make something that's evil seem good. You know, so, and really, like what? Let me give this for example. This would be, let me give you page 30 of the Vaccine Guide. So it said, when vaccine companies began losing million-dollar lawsuits to parents with vaccine-damaged children, the United States government intervened and removed all vaccine manufacturer liability, assuming and limiting damage claims and removing the possibility of any other compensation. This was the origin of the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act of 1986, the Vaccine Compensation Amendments of 1987, which once again, if vaccines are so safe, why would the government intervene and make sure you couldn't sue any of the manufacturers of them and protect the manufacturer, the industry from being able to have any sort of, I see this face, being able to have any sort of compensation given to parents who claim my child's been affected by this vaccine. Go ahead,
Me, Kanash, and Kabash was talking the other night. When has America ever given anything that helps you for free? You know what I'm saying? If you have cancer, you have to pay for that chemo. They don't give you that free. When AIDS was a epidemic, right? That's the word, epidemic. You have to pay for those pills or those treatments. So all of a sudden, they gonna give you free vaccines? I wouldn't trust that. Like, I mean, it's just something to just think about history. When have they given you a free anything without experimenting and killing us?
Right.
So usually that's for the people that are awake. You know, they will be willingly to get those shots and then just watch and see how our people are. You know, so just some food for thought.
Right. And I'm gonna get I'm not gonna get to it, but I'm gonna go deep into that whole, vaccine thing, because there may still be people, cause a lot with anti-vaxxers. So, but I'm gonna go deep into that, but save a lot of the, I was gonna say precept, but a lot of the actual quotes from this book I'll get into next time, and I'll deal with the experiments, because this even says, it said the dark history of medical experimentation on black Americans from colonial times to the present, meaning they haven't stopped experimenting on us. All of us in the room at some point in time been experimented on. I guarantee it. Unless maybe, we'll hope, maybe, okay, the babies, hopefully not. But we've all been experimenting because they haven't stopped. They just change how they do it and the wording. But the whole goal is always to do it in a way we're not aware, or tell us it's all good. Like, doctors are paid to lie. Doctors are in a place to where even like doctors and nurses, they tell you, oh yeah, this is part of a normal trial, the normal, routine or whatever it is, when ain't normal. It's a new vaccine that they had or a new dose to where they're told to tell you it's normal, we give it, but the truth is it's experimental. They do all sorts of things. They, put things in vents. They take light bulbs and break them in subways to see how it affects the people. They do all sorts of experiments on the people. Go ahead.
When the COVID kind of first was, breaking out and so, it was weird how they were reporting like it was, between LA and New York was like, the major two, that was having the realest, like this issue was just really big, and it was kind of like, you looking at the news, you're like, what's going on? And they're reporting these numbers like, oh, Los Angeles, and I'm like, there is no way, because they were trying to say if if it's in the air, it's airborne, this and that. And I'm just thinking to myself, there is no way all these people just got infected that fast. Just if I touch them, I was like, they had to have sprayed something in the air. It was literally 2 days in a row. About 2 o'clock in the afternoon, there was a fighter jet or something flew. When I say it was low, everybody came out their house and was looking like, is he gonna land in the street? But it was
Right.
2 days in a row, and I'm like, it got to the point like I'm not going outside around this time. Like, are they dropping something in the air? Like, what are y'all doing for everybody to get infected like that fast? For you got to
Right.
have these numbers. Like, you have to have something in the air for that many people, supposedly with quotes, to get infected that fast.
Right. And and it's layers to it too. It's part of it is the people who really have gotten sick and really sick. Yes, not saying all those things are lie. You do have that, people who have gotten sick, things of that nature. But a lot of it is the flu, other flu-like symptoms. A lot of it isn't necessarily something that's completely like out of the box. There is some inflation of numbers and things of that nature as well. But there's also other agendas and opportunities that come with these things as well that put things in a place of convenience to where part of the goal is for people to lose their homes so we can get them back, so we can be able to buy up these homes, because once again, the housing market has to crash some type of way. This is just an opportunity. So those that prepared will survive. Those that didn't, you're gonna lose out. So those who have and do what they can to where hey they had better jobs where they could work, and still maintain because there's actually a lot of Edomites more so that have jobs where they can still work from home and they're still good to where they're not really as affected. It's really more of us that are being more affected because most of us have to go in for work. If our businesses are deemed non-essential, then we're not in a place. Because think about it, a lot of these restaurant-worthy people that are serving you food and catering, a lot of them are Israelites too. A lot of people working these places are Israelites. A lot of people who, even the schools are shut down. A lot of people, working there at the school, especially, because we work a lot of the bottom jobs, the custodians and janitors for these places, the maids and a lot of the servers, things that those are a lot of jobs that, our people work. Not saying other nations don't, but a lot of our people, work these jobs or that rely on them. So you do have that goal too, is to create a situation where we lose out, on our homes, and it puts a lot of people back in the rent bubble, and then rent has to go down too, because guess what? People can't afford to pay the rent, then you can't charge as high. So it also creates a perfect storm for rents to go back down. So people who lost their homes, now new people are coming up on homes. And then people who, they're forcing the rent bubble because now, shoot, if your home is foreclosed on, your credit's all messed up. It's gonna be a long recovery to get you back in a place to get a home again. So they got you in the rent bubble and locked in, where some may never recover, just like some never recovered from the 2008, 2009 crash. So or some are in a place where man, I'd given up. I'd rather just rent and just hey, at least I got a nice car. So it does have, and that's the case. You'd be like, damn, why so many people like still renting and things of that nature? And it's like a lot of them, you talk to them, like a lot of them never recovered. So never recovered from things of that nature. So that's part of the plan too. On top of pushing things to where the vaccine, push to where things are so bad to where they're able to push a mandatory vaccine, getting people to where push it through your job. So you want things to return to normal, push it through your job. They do that with other places, push to where if you want to work here, you got to get X, Y, Z shots, so to work in certain places. And this book covers that too, which I'll go into next time as far as like, man, they've already been pushing that, but that's part of the campaign, is to give the vaccine a reason to be necessary. That's it. They're looking for a reason to make the vaccine necessary. And this is the perfect storm to where before you could have resisted to where now, because notice that's been the biggest thing. They've been pushing more and more shots when you get born and when you transition to the next, not compulsory age, but the next grade span. The next grade span, they push where, okay, you got to get it, at these ages when you move from, when you're born, and then kinder to first, and then 6th to 7th, and then they try to get you from those time that, you move to that next grade span. And then on top of that, they say, okay, well, I'll try to get those that work through the school system and universities and just other places in the healthcare industry. And now it's a place to where, okay, this is giving us to where people are getting so sick, the vaccine is the answer. You got to get vaccinated. And if you can't get vaccinated, you're a risk. We don't want COVID to break out again, do we? Absolutely not. You want to work here, you got to get vaccinated. Otherwise, we can't trust you working here. I'm sorry. We can't take that risk. Things getting bad, possible lockdown again. So, and those are also the ways that the government plays in order to get us to buy in and where, all right, I just want things to stay normal. Don't you want things to go back to normal? Just believe what Master tell you to do. Things will be all right. We just got to get the shot. Why are you resisting? So you're going to have those types of things played out. So I'm going to get more of that and kind of paint that picture, because you still, may have some, and hopefully not that many of Israel, but you still have some to where they're just going to, mull over. They're just going to go ahead and accept it. But when you do the research, the vaccine is something to where not only does it contain unclean ingredient that you're injecting yourself of things of other animals, but it also contains a lot of toxic, materials and toxins that you don't want to insert in your body that have both short-term as well as long-term effects. But I'm gonna go more so into those things and paint the picture to where when you read all of the different experiments that they've been doing on us, you be like, golly, it'll make you upset. It'll make you a little, maybe some fear, things of that nature, especially they pushing it. People are going to give in due to fear. But I want to paint a good picture and not rush it. You have something to say? Go ahead. As far as what year?
Yeah,
Nah, I don't recall
but
what
it's been
year
a long
off
time,
top.
right?
So
It's been a lot of years, right?
I'll have that information. I'll go over it. It is something that's covered.
Okay, no, I was just gonna make a point that even though the flu vaccine's been out a long time, are people still having the flu? They are, right? It didn't cure the flu, right? It didn't take
Right.
it away. So same thing, COVID, this vaccination, it's not gonna take COVID away either.
Right, you're right. I mean, there's a lot of goodies that this book, and I actually love these books because it covers a lot of like the line that you're saying. But you have actually other doctors who, speak up against, vaccine because they understand and know the truth. But everything with the vaccines is all an inside job. Even doctors, they're trained, to lie. They're trained by the pharmaceutical companies, and even the reports. The reports are done, and the trials are done by the vaccine industry and the ones who are making it. So we're the ones making the vaccines, and we're the ones doing the clinical trials, and we're the ones giving the reports on, hey, these are good, this is it. So it's a lot, but I wouldn't have been able to do it justice in this class. It deserves its own class. I just want to kind of give an overview of kind of what was going on, with the climate of the community and the COVID chaos. So people who weren't really aware or abreast of kind of all the news updates, they're kind of like, okay, this is everything I kind of been missing, kind of up until now, and just kind of the direction things are heading in. So I need to kind of get ready mentally for being in that state to where we may be without, and preparing myself, my family, my children to have less. And I'm gonna do it like another lesson that kind of do contention, being content and grateful, kind of in that thing, so because we're gonna have to go without. But
So
go ahead.
the book that you're speaking of, there are medical doctors in that book that speaks against the vaccine? Oh,
But he's wise. That they use wisdom in regards to how they say, because like I say, even the book is like, this one is a vaccine guide, but play on words because it's things to where I'm not gonna directly tell you, hey, do or don't do, but I'm gonna tell you like, look, this is what's really in it. This is what it does to the body. You make your own conclusion from there. So it's just kind of things of that nature, because it's also others are wise what they directly say and don't say, as far as not to ruffle any feathers or step on toes, especially remaining within a certain circle. But they're going to tell you, hey, this is what's really in it. These are real case reports. And even tells you most parents and most adults don't have access to these studies and this information. So it takes a lot of those in that circle to spill the beans or whistleblowers and give the truth. Like, this is it, because you don't know, and that's what a lot of things they cover. Like, you don't know, you don't have the same access to the information. So they tell you everything. So I'm going to go over like how the media and everything, the media lies and all this. And I know we talk about it, but it's different when you have like doctors and other reports telling you that there's agendas, so, and it's not just a straight, what people say, like just a conspiracy, as if it's just all false and just pulling things out of the crack of my butt. So I'm gonna just make a lesson that just rifles down all of these different case studies and different experiments that they've done, with this, and even the history of these different people that we kind of heard of, but who are their teachers and mentors that even instilled that within them to where they started to push it. Even like you tell people, birth control and everything, that was deliberately started so that we as Israelites would terminate our children. That was the whole purpose, so that we would terminate our children. So just getting more of that information and pulling that. So I'll have that for you guys next time. But any other talking points? Anything else someone wants to have? Anything? Okay, so that is pretty much it. Just make sure you guys, prepare. Get yourself in a mindset, your kids, yourself, your spouse, and a mindset of being able to go with less. So because it's going to be rough times ahead, and the reality that we have as far as being able to enjoy a lot of luxuries, that it may not be the same. We always deal with things that are going to get worse, taking the kingdom, everything else, but we still have a period of darkness to go through, so it's not just, all right, things been bad for 3 months, been all hell. All right, Yahweh, so when you read the scripture, that ain't it. Even when you read some of the plagues, like, golly, like, that plague lasted 6 months? Like, golly, and that was just one out of all these other, like, it's a time period, so it's a phase. Whether that time period is a total of 10 years, 5 years, 15, I couldn't tell you, but it ain't going to be too long. Like, we ain't looking at no 100 years or from now, or even like, anything like crazy like that. It's going to be soon, as we always say, but soon doesn't mean, a day, a week, or a month, literally, so whether it's 3 years, 5 years, that's what we got to endure, but just teach and instill them to where, hey, look, I'm trying to give my kids less technology, more family building. We build amongst ourselves, less watching TV. I having them watching a lot of stuff like on our captivity, slavery, like just getting their mind like focused on like, man, these the enemy, this is the climate, like just getting them out of La La Land. All right, too many of us spend too much time in La La Land and not enough time on like, hey, what the reality of things going on is. So take your break, but start getting your family in tune with like, look, family meetings, this is where we're gonna be at. If this happens, like family emergencies, if I get shot, do this. If I don't come home, do this, because jackings, everything starts going up to where, what do I do? Am I prepared? Is my family prepared? Because that's part of the chaos that the government is brewing up, to where you just want to make sure you and your family's all right. So stock up what you can on food, supplies, be in a place to where you have a community or someone to rely on, someone that if you have to go to someone's house that you can trust, that, hey, we can, pop up shelter with you, whatever it is. And yeah, definitely if you're Israelite, you need to get in a camp, somewhere you can have better. Some people avoid camp because they don't like discipline or they don't like order or structure, but, you got to bite that bullet, because the Most High called us to fellowship and be amongst each other, and that's so that we can be able to stand against when nations would come against us. We'd have a defense, and that defense is having each other. So that's it. I'm going to go ahead and close out this lesson. So more will be to come. So I'm going to see what I'll title the next lesson, but that was kind of the main thing that I just wanted to cover and just have, a little conversation with you guys, but just really kind of give, I guess, what's it called, current event type thing, so more current event. So next one to be dedicated more so vaccines. So any other question, anything? Everybody good? So, all right, family, man, appreciate it. Go ahead and close out. So a little different this evening. So hopefully you're updated that you may not have been as aware of, and you kind of seen the direction things were going in as I was painting the picture. I had a lot of articles, so I just kind of wanted to make sure I went over them, continue to look them up, do your own research, and then, we'll go from there. So any announcements?